First things first, exit the town to the Twilight Strand. In this one we're running through Act 6 on my BLADESTORM Max Block Gladiator build. We'll cover where to get skill points, how to kill the bosses in here, and I'll give you a brief rundown of each area. Hello Exile, you're watching Altek2k Gaming. In the Twilight Strand, we do actually need to full clear, so don't just kill blues, kill everything. You don't need to kill anything behind a mechanic, such as a chest or anything like that. You can just leave those. If you open it, you have to kill it. When we complete this quest, Lily Roth will give us access to any skill gem that you can purchase from a vendor in this game. Nothing in here causes us much trouble, but something you should be aware of is on death, each of them fly up this ghost type thing that tries to land on you and kill you. It's pretty easy to avoid apart from the last boss, which throws out so much of it that you're going to get hit by at least some of it. It should be noted that up until now, dying hasn't cost you anything. Between Acts 6 and 10, you will lose 5% of XP when you die. Once you get to maps, it will be 10%. The Cruel and Merciless Labyrinth are also included at the 5% loss. To make matters worse, we've just lost 30% of our resistances to Katava. And in the early parts of this act, most of the monsters deal an absolute ton of fire damage. So what we're going to do now is try and cap all our resistances. If we can't complete it, we do want at least 55% to stay alive, otherwise we're going to die an awful lot at the beginning of this act. Some ways to do this are equipping Purity of Elements, using the crafting bench in your hideout to craft on some resistances to the gear you've already got, providing it's not all uniques, and change some of your gear around. Luckily, I could do this by just changing a ring. The idea is to kill the boss as quickly as possible. His mechanics are a simple slap and throwing those things into the air to land on you. Neither on their own should be enough to kill you, however, if you do get hit by enough of those ghosty things you will die, and I don't think you want to do that. If you've done your job properly, then you should see 0 monsters remaining when you kill the boss. If you don't, then you need to go and find the monsters you missed, and it will take ages, so please do try and kill them all. Once we're safely back in town, go and talk to Lily Roth to hand in the quest. We're also going to buy Cast When Damage Taken and link it to Molten Shell. Also grab a Tempest Shield, which we can't use yet, but we will use as soon as we get the mana for it. Tempest Shield is going to cause a little bit of lightning damage, which can do a little bit of shock. It's also going to give us some much needed magic blocks, so we need less on the tree. And while still talking, I sort of set off to the coast. You don't have to kill anything here, we just run straight through. And to make it less dull, I've sped up time just a little bit. Into the mudflats now, and yes, you'd be forgiven for thinking this was Act 1. And now, just a little bit of a disclaimer. On these levelling series, I make it up as I go along. I haven't planned this in Path of Building or anything, so I may completely screw this up and then correct something later. Just be aware of that. But hey, keeps it fun and exciting. Oh yeah, gameplay. Head to the top of this arena and run across the wall to the right. Eventually you'll come to a shack and then you'll find the Dishonored Queen. We need to vanquish her. When she dies, she'll drop the Eye of Conquest. You need this to leave the area. Head left now to the door. We're going into the Karuri Fortress. This area is fixed, so it always keeps the same shape. In this area we'll be fighting the first of 3 gods in this act. Each one gives you a skill point. This is the only god in the act that we actually have to kill to progress. Oh, and in case you didn't realise with the whole fix thing, just follow where I go. And now we're just heading to Tukohama's keep. This boss is really rather annoying. You'll see that slam he's just done, that will one-shot you. Now there's also this totem thing in the middle that spins round and puts fire on you. And he casts a load of totems as well, so we just kill those and we try and put as much damage on him as possible, but always avoid that big red razory circle thing where he'll slam you. After a little while, a shield will engulf him. It's protected by 4, or projected by 4 totems around the edge of the arena. We're going to go to each edge, spin round a little bit and kill those, avoiding the balls that are now flying in from his totems and himself that keeps running at us. We're just going to rinse and repeat this a couple of times until the shield drops. He's completely invulnerable at this point. And his shield is down. Okay, we are going to spin round and kill him, hopefully. It shouldn't take long, now his shield's down. And just avoid the fire in the middle, and he's down. Skill points, we're going for mana now. And we also got up first Pantheon, which is the only one we can get right now. Out now to the left, and then we go right. When you first exit that area, there's an awful lot of density, so activate your skillet as quickly as possible so they don't one-shot you. And then round this corner and you'll find a set of stairs and we go up into the ridge. And what can we say about the ridge, apart from it's kinda dull. It contains lots of things that fire projectiles, both skeletons and those snaky things, so it's a bit annoying. It also contains those wheelie skeletons, and a really rather nasty unique one that fires lightning. If you come across this one, I suggest you run away or kill it if you're feeling brave. It is the only thing in this area that's possibly got a chance of killing you. The exit to this area is either top right or top leftish. You'll know you found the right one because there'll be stakes out the ground with wheels on top. And now we're heading into the prison via the roof.
There's a lady in a tower. but this is no fairy tale.
And we're in the prison, and that was one of the new voice lines that I mentioned in the previous episode. All shiny and all new. And for anyone wondering how far I got in Gauntlet, I killed Gravicius and then died to a load of blues, which was really disappointing. But I got way beyond my target of Act 2, although once I got to Act 2 I set a new target of Act 4 which I completely failed at. And thank you all for your advice. I would not have got as far as I did without that advice. Now part of that advice was to use a decoy totem. I don't know about you guys, but I have never ever used a decoy totem before in my life. They are so amazing. Do you use them frequently during normal leveling? Because I don't. Should I? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're typing into those comments, don't forget to tickle that like button. It likes it a lot. And back to the prison. General advice for the prison is head upwards from the waypoint. It isn't always upwards, but it's more often than not upwards. From this point on, the prison is now split into multiple areas. Basically, just find the exit for each one. One of the bonuses is there's no loading screen between these areas as they're all technically the same area. Mobs to look out for in this area are the ones in cages. They have absolutely insane amount of life and regen. They're very, very hard to kill, and I don't tend to kill them even if they're blue, unless I'm bored. And just coming up now, you'll see a portal or a doorway which will take you to the next sort of sub-area. And we just rinse and repeat this several times over. Now because it is generally a repeat, I'm going to cut out all of the sub-areas until we get to the end of the last one before we hit the roof where we fight a boss. Now in this last area you'll see that the door isn't on the edge like all the previous areas, it's actually in the middle of the arena. And it's a set of ladders going up onto the roof. Now this roof fight can be a bit ropey, so I'm going to drop a portal just in case because we don't want to do the walk of shame through this area because it's absolutely massive. If you've been leveling at a similar pace to me, you should now have another skill point, which means we're going to get Champion of the Cause. This gives us increased aura effect and increased mana reservation efficiency for auras. We should now have enough mana to switch on Tempest Shield, which I'm going to do now. Tempest Shield is going to give us a load of extra spell block, and also it causes our shield to cast out lightning when we're hit. This will shock people and deal a small amount of damage. It's not going to be massive, but every little helps. And now onto the roof for the fight. And this fight has a double lineup. We're going to be fighting Chevron and Brutus. So Brutus slams the ground, as you can see he's doing there, and there's a load of books that cast lightning, and Chevron will be firing from the sidelines, but she's protected by a shield at the moment and we can't hurt her. The idea is to knock Brutus down to around half health. Now every so often she'll empower Brutus with this blue beam, which makes his attacks more powerful. Whenever he's doing that big cone thing, just sort of walk around him to avoid being hit by it. Eventually Chevron will come out as she just did, and she'll sort of stand there so we can hit her. Now she will add some books that you can destroy. You want to destroy those. When she raises in the air like this, run around her. She's completely invulnerable at this point, but she will keep firing at you. And then we just sort of rinse and repeat, dropping our, what is it called? BLADESTORM on the ground. And eventually she will disappear, and she will merge with Brutus. Now this creates a permanently empowered Brutus, so you do want to avoid his attacks wherever possible. He can quite easily kill you. And you can see there, Corrupting Fever has a load of blood on them, or corrupted blood on them, and we're also bleeding. You should see the health bar dropping pretty fast. And eventually he'll go down. Every so often he'll pull that chain. You don't want to be between him and the wall when he does that. The skill bot we're getting here is for killing 2k Hammer earlier. And we're going to run through the next area, which is Prisoner's Gate, and we basically just follow the path all the way to the end. There's nothing more to this just yet. And once we get to the end, we'll drop a portal because we'll be coming back here very, very shortly. Into the Western Forest now, and this is really, really simple. We just jump all the way through till we get to the end and exit. You want to grab the waypoint just before you exit, however. Now, if memory serves, there is a crafting recipe in here. I never bother to get it. It's basically where Alira's camp should be. Anyway, once we get to the end, head into the riverways. And once we're in here, we'll just follow the path until we get to the waypoint. Once we get to the waypoint, we're going to grab that waypoint and then head back to town and follow the portal back to Prisoner's Gate. Back to Prisoner's Gate now, basically head to one of the edges until you find an offshoot, follow that offshoot around, and eventually you will find the entrance to the Valley of the Fire Drinker. This is our second god and is worth a skill point. As you enter his area, he will try and jump on your head and kill you. Every so often you'll see the boss raise his hand. When he does this, he's about to call down some fireballs on you. You want to avoid these until he drops to around half health. At certain points, these mobs jump in, and you've got to kill them along with him. Now, also, you'll get these fire circles on the ground when he exits. They do some damage. This middle area is just mobs and falling in fire from the edge. I tend to just run through, drop a Bladestorm every so often, and that'll sort of kill stuff behind you as you get to the exit and walk into the next area. Jump to the far side of the arena, he'll be there waiting for you. That circles around him, which means he's falling in loads of fireballs into the area. And we just rinse and repeat what we did before. Now, unlike the last area, where he cast those circles on the ground as he jumps out, in this one he's going to cast them while you're still in. Well, unless you kill him really quick like I just did. And there's us getting our skill book for killing him, and I didn't use the other one, use both of them, and we're going to grab our Reservation Mastery, which gives us 15% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. Now we head back to the Waypoint, and we head upwards into the wetlands. Once in the wetlands, we sort of follow the wall around to the left, and eventually you'll come to a door. This door comes into the Puppet Master's area, which is the final god in this act. We also get a skill point for this, which is always nice. Now, it is important to note that this god and the previous one isn't essential to complete this act, so if you are struggling for damage and don't think you can kill them without dying, you can come back later and finish them off. You'll just get the skill books later instead. So in the Puppet Master's arena, there's this area towards the back which is full of chaos ground, and there's 3 mini-bosses called Rislatha's Nests. The idea here is to kill all 3 nests, which will activate the Puppet Master. Now, killing these isn't very difficult at all, and shouldn't cause you much trouble. The biggest trouble is the constant damage you're taking from the ground, which some life flasks will be able to offset quite easily. Okay, fighting him now. Basically, just drop Bladestorm. He's going to start firing out chaos in front of him. What we want to do is stay behind him at all times. At certain intervals of the fight, when his health drops low enough, 75% for the first one, he'll move. He sort of goes underground and moves and leaves a poison trail behind him. There's also these little pods that appear that explode. Wherever there's those circles on the ground, that's basically what he's left, and we just want to avoid those too. An awful lot of chaos damage happening here, which we don't have a lot of natural resistance to. But he's not a very difficult boss. Back to Targli, grab a skill point for killing him. And we're going to go up and grab this strength. And now we're going to move our extra ascendancy jewel, because there's a nicer place to put it that only requires 2 jumps instead of the 3 we currently use. There we go, much more efficient, and we can go and grab this axe node. Start doing some axe damage. Take the waypoint back to the riverways now, and we're going to head to where the Act 2 town should be. You'll find the Act 2 town boarded up if you go far enough, and once you get to this point, head downwards. Eventually you'll find the exit. This will be an exit into the Southern Forest. Into the Southern Forest now, and this is an area of very low randomness, so it's pretty much the same layout every single time, with a couple of slight variances. Basically, at the entrance, head straight downwards, you'll find a little log to jump over. You're going to jump over this, and then you're going to head to the very right-hand side of this little island. There'll be another log onto 3 smaller islands, which we're going to run through in sequence. Once we get to the end of here, you'll be onto a bit of mainland. You're going to head and follow this all the way down. There can be quite a high density of blues in here, so spin round as you travel to try and kill as many of them as possible from between the trees. Can't see the monsters for the trees? It's a pretty common occurrence in this area, which is very dense with trees as well as monsters. And eventually at the bottom you'll find the waypoint and a door into the next area, which is the Cavern of Anger, which is the exit to where we killed Mavail in Act 1. Grab an axe node. Now in this area, I cannot stress enough how important it is to pick up the black flag from that chest. If you forget, you'll have to come all the way back, and it is not a quick journey. Once you've got that, we're going to head through this cavern. The cavern is fairly straightforward. The exit is always either bottom right, mid right, or top right. Although never really high top, sort of midway between mid and top, if you get what I mean. There's also quite a nasty boss in here. You can quite easily dodge him. Once you get to the end, we're just going to exit out onto the beacon. Not to, of course, be mistaken with bacon. One is great on a sandwich, the other will break your teeth. So, general idea behind the beacon. We're going to try and head upwards. It's always upwards. The way upwards is not always the same, however. First word of warning about this area, it is full of mobs that do cold damage. And actually that's true about the next area as well, after the beacon. Now we don't have any form of freeze immunity or chill immunity at this point, unless you happen to pick up a flask. So we want to be really, really careful, but also probably kill more than usual to make sure they don't keep throwing that cold at us. Once we reach the top of the map, we're looking for a jutty out bit that takes us up onto a little island. This will have stones on either side and will be raised. I found it straight off, you might not. If you don't, just head across the coast until you find it. Heading up the path now, eventually you'll come across this path. There will be these stone things on either side, just keep heading and following the path. You'll reach this platform up the stairs and there is a crafting recipe right here. To your right there'll be another flight of stairs. Head up here onto the next platform. Eventually you'll come across this metal cylinder. It has a yellow ring around it, you want to head inside the yellow ring. Whilst within the ring, the metal cylinder will start to move across the track until it gets to its destination. Along the way there'll be loads and loads of mobs spawn, which you'll just have to kill. If you leave the ring for whatever reason, before reaching the end, the metal cylinder will start to backtrack on itself along the track. There are certain places that when you reach in the track, it will sort of act as a lock, preventing it from going back any further. These are normally at the corners, but not always. Once the cylinder does reach the alcove at the end of the track, stay in the circle until it empties its load into the central container on the top. You can then head over the top and head down the other side to find a matching container on the other side. You would just rinse and repeat what you did on this side. And we're just going to speed through this side until we reach the alcove. Once the container on the top is full, go over and hit the ignition switch. The beacon will now light up. Now touch anywhere on the beacon and the flame will go black as you throw in the black flag, which summons Wayland Roth to take you to the Brine King's Reef. Now if you have enjoyed this video thus far, then please consider tickling that like button. It likes it a lot and sometimes it gets lonely. Once on the Brine King's Reef, grab the waypoint. Now the arena where we fight the Brine King will be somewhere along the edge of this island. I tend to head upwards and work my way around, and that tends to be the quickest way to find it on average. Occasionally you can find it just to the left of where you start, but it's very rare, so I tend not to go that way first. Just like the last zone, there are loads of monsters in this area that will want to freeze or chill you. Please try and avoid that. Every so often you will come across some large stone golems. These things are lethal. Their slams will one-shot you and they're really hard to kill because they have a global shed ton of hit points. I tend to just avoid these as much as possible. Eventually we'll reach the offshoot into the arena. Through the door and we're ready to fight. Now to spare you the inescapable boredom at the beginning of this fight, I've cut out about 25 seconds of rambling from Nessa. So we're straight into the fight. Periodically, the King of Brine will raise a shield around himself. Note that he's not the Messiah, he's just a very naughty boy. This shield doesn't actually prevent any damage to him unless you actually stay away from him. It does, however, do a lot of damage to you. Once we take him down to certain health levels, he will sit down for a little rest. This is where stuff gets really dangerous and really hectic. The arena will shrink, surrounded by water, which if you walk into it will start to deal damage to you rather quickly. Every so often water will shoot through here to the other side, and there's loads of these circles on the floor which deal massive amounts of lightning damage. If you are not lightning capped, these will one-shot you. If you're really struggling in these sections, you can port out, come back in, and let the area's death prevention counters keep you safe. I've never done this because it feels kind of cheaty to me, but it is doable apparently. Now in general, the fight has adds all the way through it to recharge your flask, so there's no trouble there. The only real attack the Brine King has got is either his shield or a big sweep, which he only really uses at the beginning of each section of the fight. So make sure you stood towards the back of him when each section starts. Throughout the fight he does do some big slams, but these are so well telegraphed with so much time, you'd really have to not be paying attention to be hit by these. Once he reaches 50% health, it's time for him to sit down again, and you've got the really annoying part of the fight that can actually kill you. Eventually this will be over and we'll go back to the normal fight of the Brine King. After each of these sections, the water does recede slightly, but not as far as from when we originally started, so the arena is getting smaller and smaller, and so the fight is getting slightly harder. The Brine King doesn't get any new abilities between phases, however he does start to use them more and more with each phase that progresses. Knock him down to 25% health and he will sit down extremely briefly. Once he stands back up again, it should be noted that the water does not recede, and also the lightning on the floor does not stop. During this section I suggest you do not use movement skills. I know that can be quite hard, but it's really dangerous. Eventually, if you're lucky, he'll shower you with rares and Sim will drop down, which we're going to grab this soul of the Brine King. The soul of the Brine King prevents us getting stun locked. Later on it will also prevent us from being frozen. Sail to Act 7. And we did it in 3 hours, 21 minutes and 22 seconds, which is very respectable. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.